Cole Palmer, we saw what he can do for Manchester City as recently as the other night in Athens. What's the latest on him?
Yeah, good afternoon, well, good morning, guys. Did you say we've gone early today? Cole Palmer, certainly a player who has suitors in the Premier League. I know Brighton have been looking for a while now to potentially do a permanent transfer out of Manchester City. West Ham, I think, have mentioned Cole Palmer during the course of conversations regarding Lucas Paquetá and his potential move to City. Intriguing comments, wasn't it, from Palmer after he made such an impact in that Super Cup final in the week, said that he needs to be playing this season. Obviously, we know Man City are still looking to strengthen their squad. So I think if he isn't given guarantees by Pep Guardiola, then he may well look to make a move from the football club. Never easy to walk away from a club of the stature of City, but there is a European Championship at the end of the season. And of course, he did so well for the under-21s, Cole Palmer. He might just fancy gate-crashing Gareth Southgate's plans for Germany.
I mean, a big incredible set of circumstances if he was to move out of City at this particular stage, Martin, wouldn't it? City and Pep and everything else that goes with it.
He's kind of talking the talk and walking the walk at the same time, this lad. You know, he knows the rules. You have to perform. Mahrez's gone. He scored an outstanding goal against Arsenal in the Community Shield, did the same the other night. Lovely header for that Super Cup final. It's big talk from both of them. The manager's saying you're going to be sold, but he's performing on the pitch. So I'd see no reason why Man City would get rid of him right at this point. But maybe Pep wants to say, look, maybe all of this talk is helping the player, motivating the player to play very well on the field.
Yeah. He's performing on the pitch. Martin's right about that. Alex, David De Gea, he'd like to perform on any pitch sometime soon, would he not?
Yeah, it's hard not to feel a degree of sympathy for David De Gea. I don't think it ended in the grand manner at Manchester United. Simon clearly disagrees, but I think for the service that he gave that football club, maybe he deserved more of a send-off.
Must have been terrible for £375,000 a week.
I know for a fact he's held talks with Real Madrid, but obviously they went in a different direction. They signed Kepa Arrizabalaga from Chelsea. Looked like Bayern Munich could be a potential destination, but seems from sources in Germany that Thomas Tuchel has blocked that move. Chelsea were mentioned to me as a possible backup there as well for Robert Sanchez, but I'm not sure De Gea wants to go and sit on anybody's bench. Probably Saudi Arabia still looks the most likely destination, but I think he probably still has something to offer right at the top of the European game.
You're right, though. I mean, if he goes to Saudi Arabia, it is an enormous bag of money. He's a very wealthy man in his own right. It is pretty darn difficult to feel any sympathy for him this morning, I would have to say, Alex. Anybody in here feel sympathy for him?
Well, I feel that if he wants to play football, I mean, you look at the monetary side. I mean, he has been unceremoniously dumped, really, by Manchester United.
What do you mean his contract's ended?
No, he was actually offered a contract and they reneged on it and they changed their mind. Ten Hag changed his mind for someone.
No, that is true.
So, it's one of those unfortunate situations, and now Bayern Munich have backed out of that deal as well. So I'm sure he'll end up with somewhere, Jim. He'll be playing, but he won't be playing, obviously, the huge amounts of money he's getting at the moment, unless he goes to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. What about this boy, Kudus? Mohamed Kudus at Ajax, am I right? Yeah, we were talking about West Ham. Is this going to happen?
They hope so, Jim. And they've flown over Tim Stuyton, their sporting director, to try and get this deal done. A few weeks ago, people were suggesting he was close to Brighton. That was played down immediately by my sources at the Amex because I think they knew it would be a difficult deal for them to do. The fee that Brighton were discussing was around £40 million. I've had a message this morning suggesting that maybe Ajax have moved the goalpost when it comes to West Ham because, of course, people know they've got a lot of money to spend having sold Declan Rice for a then British record fee. But this would be a potential replacement for Lucas Paquetá. We've been talking for a couple of weeks now about the prospect of him joining Manchester City. I think Kudus probably will end up in the Premier League, but West Ham want to get this deal done to ensure that one of the big boys don't come in and hijack it at the last minute.
You wonder when, anytime soon, we're going to be talking about David Sullivan signing somebody. I mean, it is getting on, Simon. We're getting through the month, aren't we?
Well, it's interesting because obviously there's been certain rumblings about certain dissatisfaction amongst the relationships in the back, with whether it's David Moyes and the technical director, and the acquisition policy that they've got. Look, I mean, they've sold Declan Rice. They're going to come under threat with this boy Paquetá. So they're going to need to replenish. They're going to need to be able to give David the resources to at least give himself a competitive chance of doing something that doesn't ultimately enable him to be on the back end of people not being happy with his job. Again, we are the 17th, 18th of August. We still have 13 days of the month to go. And I would suspect that West Ham will do business and will do some business that makes people sit up a little bit more than they currently are.
The Ward-Prowse deal's done, is it, Jim?
He's done. He's been in there for 3 days now. 35 million. Tyler Adams to Bournemouth. This is happening, isn't it?
It is a medical booked for this afternoon. Tyler Adams, one of a number of Leeds players who had a release clause in his contract allowing him to leave if they were relegated. Daniel Farker has been bemoaning just how badly that football club was run at the end of last season. £20 million is the release clause. Bournemouth triggered it on Monday. We broke that news first here on talkSPORT. And the USA captain set to become the latest arrival at the South Coast. He'll be a direct replacement for Jefferson Lerma, who, of course, let his contract run down and join Crystal Palace. I think it's a good pickup for Bournemouth. He's not fit at the moment, but when he is, I think he'll bolster that midfield.
Now, Shea Adams probably has got one eye on Hampden and doing a job in England. But for now, maybe a move to Everton. Is that going to happen?
That looks the most likely route out of Southampton. He's got a year left on his contract. I know teams like Palace and Bournemouth themselves have shown a bit of interest, but it looks like the firmest interest is from Everton by way of a £12 million bid. Russell Martin, actually, new man in charge at Southampton, he's been speaking to the media this morning. They go to Plymouth live on talkSPORT 2 tomorrow morning. He wants to keep Shea Adams. He said he'd be gutted to lose him, but adds if he does go for a sum of money the club deem appropriate, a sum of money which presumably mean that we can replace him. Keep an eye on Perot down at Swansea. He scored a lot of goals for Russell Martin. I'd imagine if Shea Adams does lead the club, then he would be a big target.
And Brennan Johnson to finish with. A lot of people getting in touch. What's the latest on Brennan Johnson? Does he have a future at Forest? Does he?
Well, Chelsea have stepped up their interest. To be fair to you, Jim, you were suggesting earlier this week there was a chance that Michael Olise rejected a move to Chelsea and signed a new contract at Simon's old club, Crystal Palace. That's exactly what happened yesterday.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you.
Steve Parish took delight in announcing that on Twitter. Quite an unusual step for a Premier League owner, but we'll give him his moment in the sun. And Brennan Johnson now a real target for Chelsea. I'm told talks have taken place between Chelsea and Forest. £50 million, though, the fee. That would be quite an expensive addition for Chelsea. Is he worth it? That's the question.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.